And a good evening. Live on YouTube, you are tuned in to the 2025 Bucknell Invitational. I'm Nicholas Severini, live from the Kinnean Auditorium in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania for evening one of this three-day invitational as the Bison host 6 other programs in what is the more preliminary invitationals of the area as we approach the winter swim season. Bucknell hosting Brown, Davidson, Delaware, Fordham, Seton Hall, as well as UMBC to get the winter swim competition started. It has already been a very long morning into afternoon into evening here at the Auditorium. This is the third session of the day, in which competition started at 10 in the morning with a lot of the preliminary swim events. We have had some diving events in the afternoon as well, and we will continue to have some preliminary diving events taking place to our right here in the Auditorium stands. It's a great crowd on hand here, both with the athletes in the pool and around the pool, as well as the spectators in the stands as well. It is very much a packed crowd here at the Auditorium as we are set to get the first finale competition underway. It is the women's 200-yard freestyle relay. This competition and this event, just like most of the other events that we will see this evening, will feature 3 heats, with the C teams in heat number 1, the B seeds in heat number 2, and the A seeds in heat number 3. Upwards of 40 to 50 competitors have taken place in a lot of the individual events. This is a bit different, though, at least as far as the preliminaries are concerned. This is much different because these are the finals and these are the team events. There are no team preliminary events here for this invitational and this competition. This will be, of course, other than the practices and the like, the first time that these quadruplet of athletes will swim here in this event and in the other team events this evening and throughout this weekend. So we're all set to go here for the first heat. In the first event, it is the women's 200-yard freestyle relay. There is a slight delay, and it is for what we would have to say is a comical reason why. Ian Dye just giving our announcement, excellent operator of both statistics and the like here at the Auditorium. They don't have enough timers, evidently, on the mats and the pads, so to speak. So without the proper number of timers, this event and this competition will not be allowed to start. Gives us plenty of opportunity to discuss everything that is taking place so far on day 1 of 3 here in the Invitational. We have already seen 8 events in the swimming pool take place, and if you are hearing some of the sarcastic cheers, that is because it seems like one of the Bison personnel staff has taken place as the final timer. She is over in the 3rd lane of sorts. So we have all 8 timers set to go onto our left side, and that means that we can get this evening's competition underway. The 500 freestyle prelims for the women and men, the 200-yard individual medley, and the 50-yard freestyle preliminary has taken place already this morning between the women and the men for 8 total events on the pool. And at 12:30 at least was the distinguishment. We have the preliminaries for the men's 1-meter dive and the women's 3-meter diving competition. A quick run through of the rules for the 8 timers taking place, and they're going to need all 8 of them for a majority of this one, with 7 total schools taking place and all taking part in the events at least this evening. It is going to be a very busy evening for the officials and the timers alike, as we're all set to go, and we already have one DNS in the form of what looks to be Delaware down in pad number 4, but we will get heat number 1 underway. Lanes 1 through 8 on your screens, from that view the left to right, and from our view now from the near side all the way to the far side. In lane number 3 we will see Fordham's C team. Lane number 4 supposed to belong to Delaware's C seed, although they have not taken to the pool for the first time. Bucknell in lane number 5 will be the favorites then, at least in this heat, with UMBC's 6th seed all the way up in lane number 6. Quite even Steven, we'd have to say, through the first 75 yards of this competition to the near side in Fordham and towards more of the far side in Bucknell. UMBC standing within a body's length of this one early on. This is going to be a competition like some competitions as we get the first turnstile taking place, and looked like Bucknell had the smoother of the transitions in between the swimmers. This is a competition like most that we are going to see this evening that is predicted to be won by Brown. In fact, their A team and their B team are ranked number 1 and number 2 in the seeding of this event. We will see Brown's B team try to set the tone in heat number 2. Transition number 3 of 4 amongst the swimmers. Bucknell leading the line up in lane number 5 in the early going of this one for the Bison. Bucknell, of course, the host of this competition, which is taking place in the beautiful Kinney Auditorium, one of the best of its kind here in the region, and they certainly have had a great crowd here early on in this one and this evening to take in the atmosphere, as we will see the Bison take the first heat of 3 with a time of a 1:37.06. That ranks about 0.8 better than their predicted seeded time, and some cheers as well from the Bison fans that distinguish that fact. Followed behind, of course, down in lane number 3, that will be Fordham, who pulled in with a time just under 1:40. What is a 1:37.06? In fact, it looks like there might have been a slight change of the fact there compared to our timing screens. It was, in fact, Delaware that took that first spot, with Bucknell taking second up in lane number 3. And now we will see here the first of all 7 lanes for the 7 schools being occupied, down from lane number 1 all the way up to lane number 7. And this is where we will begin to see very much the timing screens get similar, as well as the swimmers taking place. It looks like the best start belonging to Brown, who is occupying lane number 4 here in heat 2 of 3. Brown wearing that bright white swim cap, resembling what are going to be the favorites of this school to take the entire invitational, and they are first, closely followed behind by Delaware, who is occupying lane number 5 just above them, but the best jump actually belonging to Bucknell down in lane number 3. And it will be Bucknell with the advantage on the opposite wire to wire. Those 3 have very much set the tone, and they are very much providing a good atmosphere early on. Bucknell maybe narrowly ahead, but now you have Brown just sort of closing in. We'll see who had the better transition, as those 2 just starting to maybe the narrowest of margins separate from Delaware up in lane number 5. The third transition and the third swimmer of 4 taking place here in the second seat, and now we're starting to see with their third swimmer, Brown, sort of level the pace a little bit. Now even Delaware getting ahead of Bucknell as they'll set for the final transition here. And it is Brown getting to the wall first, and now about a body's length ahead of Bucknell and Delaware in lane number 3 and 5, respectfully. The closest to the pack all the way up in lane number 7, that is Davidson's B team. Not far behind is UMBC, with looks to be Fordham, as well as UMBC rounding it out as they come to the line first, and that is a facilitating time for Brown, who take the second heat with a 1:33.1, a 3/10 difference over Delaware, who took second with a 1:34.4, and Bucknell's B seed rounding out the top 3 with a 1:34.7, as you see on the top left of your screens. So from what we have seen so far, Brown's has got the best time with a 1:33.1, and that has already beaten their seeded time as well by about 8/10 rather of a second. We have seen both first place finishers finish about 8/10 better than their seeded times. But now we are going to see potentially what could be one of the best in the region. Brown's women's 200-yard freestyle side has come neck and neck, their A seed with their B seed. This A squad has very much had to fight for their position on the A team, and they're looking to explain why. Brown in their bright white caps occupying lane number 4. They'll occupy that lane a lot this evening. Delaware with the bright blue hen in a lighter blue on the near side occupying lane number 3. And Bucknell with a bit of a darker blue up in lane number 5. UMBC in lane number 6. Davidson in lane number 7. Fordham is all the way down with their black and crimson / maroon, we'll call it, swim cap in lane number 1. Rounding it out will be Seton Hall in lane number 2 with a black and blue swim cap. Slight delay as we get the setup here for this one. Once again, from low to high in the heat number 3 of the women's 200-yard freestyle relay. We will have Fordham, followed by Seton Hall, Delaware, Brown, Bucknell, UMBC, and Davidson as they take their marks for the first finale of the invitation. Brown is a favorite in this competition by over 2 seconds. That is how much of a gap they are expected to have. They are the quickest through the first 25. It was a really good start down in lane number 2 by Seton Hall, and they are level with second with Delaware on the near side. Not a bad run as well on the near side from Fordham, and in fact it'll be Fordham in second place as they go through the first transition. And a great jump as well off of the mats by Delaware down in lane number 3. Fordham is continuing to have a very impressive place down in lane number 1, almost being crowded a bit all the way on the near side of your screens, but in fact, it looks like Fordham might have a bit of a seam down low. Delaware and Brown neck and neck in the middle of the pool, and it is Brown, Fordham, Delaware 1, 2, and 3 at the halfway mark, and a great jump as well from Delaware. We are surrounded by a lot of Delaware fans here in the stands, and they are very much loud for their swimmers here. On the turn of the jump, Brown and Delaware are the neck-and-neck swimmers, and Fordham is putting on a very impressive performance down in lane number 1 as we go to the anchor leg. It is Brown escaping out of the pool first, and now on the anchor. They're looking to try and take over on the near side. It's a great run out as well from Fordham. Bucknell trailing a bit outside of the top 3. Brown on the turn. They look to be ahead. Fordham making an excellent run. Delaware making a late push as well. But it is going to be the favorites in Brown taking the competition with the 130.9. Only less than half a second off of Delaware, who is in second. And how about the performance from Fordham? And you can hear the chants from the swimmers on the far side. A terrific performance down in lane number 1 to occupy the top 3. Bucknell, the hometown school, in 4th. UMBC in 5th. Davidson rounding out the top 6 in lane number 7. So Brown, the victors, as predicted, but it was far closer, I think, than many would have predicted. The seeded favorites by just over 2 seconds. And how about Fordham, who were 4 seconds, or rather now 4 seconds, in fact, but almost 5 seconds quicker than their seeded time. A very impressive performance by Fordham to get a top 3 finish here in the first final event of this invitational and of this evening. Not a bad start to proceedings here at the Kinney Auditorium in night 1 of the Bucknell Invitational, the first final competition belonging to Brown. They actually took heat number 2 and heat number 3. But it was, I would say, maybe the underdog story of Fordham taking a 3rd place position all the way down in lane number 1 that I would have to say even heightened, I would say, the storylines through the first event. And now to the men's side of things, the men's 200-yard freestyle relay. This is going to be heat number 1 of 3. All but lane 1 and lane 8 occupied from lanes 2 through 7. Bucknell, Brown, Fordham, Delaware, Seton Hall, and UMBC. We saw Brown take the first competition in the women's 200-yard freestyle relay. And now we'll look to see who can take the men's side of things. It should be noted the men of Brown are the favorite. However, Fordham, who has done very well so far in the early goings of the fall and winter campaigns in this exact event, might provide a bit of scare to the Ivy League Bears in event number 2 of this evening. So far in the first heat, up in lane number 5, it's supposed to be at least Delaware, but it's a different swim cap up in heat number 5. We will await confirmation to see who is occupying that side. In fact, it is in fact Delaware, who have changed the caps between the men and the women, and Delaware with an advantage, but a great push coming down in lane number 3. We haven't said much of the efforts of Davidson so far, as well as Fordham, but they are both doing quite an impressive job here early on. It is, though, Brown in the driver's seat at the turn. And now going into this final 25, it is lane 3 and lane 5. It is Brown and Delaware, and they are neck and neck coming all the way to the line. Excitement here in heat number 1. as it's going to be Delaware that takes it up in lane number 5 by just 5/100ths of a second ahead of Brown. Fordham in between the two in a sandwich in third. Well, for the second event running, it will be the Blue Hens of Delaware that took the opening heat of the competition. It is a 1:24.5. Call it maybe a bit of a slower time in comparison to what we expected, but still a Heat 1 win for Delaware. That 1:24.5, the time to beat as we go into heats number 2 and 3. This will have all 7 lanes occupied on this occasion, with Davidson entering the fold up in lane number 7. And Bucknell, notably in lane number 1 towards the near side. Seton Hall in lane 2, and then rounding it out will be Brown, Fordham, Delaware, UMBC, and Davidson. And keep an eye out for Brown and Fordham in lanes 3 and 4, because those are the 2 favorites to take this event. Those of you just joining in, you're tuned in to the Bucknell Invitational live on YouTube. Nicholas Severini on tap here. Down in the sarcophagus of the Kinney Auditorium, you'll see executive producer Adam Contini, director Maria Verzuda, and camera operator Elizabeth Doroba, rounding out evening number 1 of 3 here in the Invitational. We mentioned that there are some diving events taking place at the same time as this one. The men's 1-meter diving preliminary competition is currently underway. The women's 3-meter diving preliminary will set to feature later this evening. Back on the mats, though, we are set for heat number 2. In the men's 200-yard freestyle relay underway here. And that was a great jump down in lane number 3. That is Brown, now wearing the red swim caps for the men's, that had the best jump of the 7 at the turn through 25. It's a great run, notably by UMBC, who is all the way up in lane number 6. And in fact, I think UMBC might be just behind Brown in the standings through the first 50 yards of 200 here in Heat 2. A change of the swim cap for the second string of the swimmers as Brown continues to extend their advantage here early on, but there is very much a crowd behind. And now it seems like an overtake for Delaware in lane number 5, and it will be, in fact, well, actually, that looked like Bucknell according to the timing tables. That is all the way down low in lane number 1, but that might have been a miscommunication there. It is, in fact, still Brown, and it is, in fact, Delaware in lanes 3 and 5 in first and second as we go to the anchor leg in heat number 2. And it is, in fact, Brown and Delaware, lanes 3 and lanes 5, who are in first and second, respectfully, in between Fordham. Quite a distant third, an entire body's length behind the 2 schools. That was a very large jump there from Delaware. Brown getting a bit more momentum, and it will, in fact, be the Bears taking the heat with a time of a 1:20.7. Delaware in second, a 1:21.3. Fordham in third. Davidson all the way up in lane number 7 with a great anchor leg to take 4th position in heat number 2. And now time then for the star of the show, heat 3 and the final heat. Here in the men's 200-yard freestyle relay, Davidson getting their chance. That's their first top 3 finish in any heat so far this evening. And what is the 5th total? And now the finale. The Brown women did the job in the women's 200-yard freestyle relay, edging out the competition of Delaware and Fordham. Fordham were a bit of the surprise coming out of that event, but Fordham just might, well, according to some, be the favorites here in this event. Just 2/100ths of a second behind Brown in terms of the seeded times. UMBC is down in lane number 3. 2 is Seton Hall, 1 is Davidson, 7 is Bucknell, 6 Delaware, 5 is Fordham, and 4, as mentioned, is Brown towards the near side with the red swim caps. You see it right in the center of your screen. The center high of your screen, almost a bit of a late jump there from the occupiers. Right after the take your mark is when the bell sound. UMBC actually might have gotten the best jump of the 7 schools as they go through the first 25. Who comes out in the final though, and maybe a bit of a surprise up in lane number 6 as Delaware might be the leaders through the first 50, and they are. An excellent start for Delaware. A sub 20.3 time there. And Delaware, we already saw one outside school, according to the seedings, take a top 3 finish. Delaware could be on here and here for this one. There's a good jump as well on the near side for Davidson. And on the far side, all the way up top, we still see Delaware in first. That's a great jump as well on the turn. Look at the blue ends of Delaware on their feet here as they have first position. Brown back in second. And at the turn, it is still the blue ends with almost a body length ahead of the competition. But there is some very fierce competition behind. And a great run as well from Davidson on the near side. They round out the top 3 with Brown in second. On the anchor leg then of this one. And it's Delaware in front, trying to provide an early upset here in this one. A great turn as well, and it is going to be the Blue Hens of Delaware that get to the wall first in lane number 6. It's a 1:18.3, and Fordham shocking Brown as well at the turn to take second as the Bears have to settle for third. Well, we saw Brown be the favorites in both of these heats. They took the women's event, but they will have to settle for third as the Delaware Blue Hens, whose seated time was a whole 2 seconds slower than Brown and Fordham, who are the first and second favorites. The Blue Hens taking first all the way up in the 6th lane. Some electrifying swimming already that we have seen so far in this competition, and as of now, we have the 2 winners, the women's 200-yard freestyle relay belonging to Brown and the men's 200-yard freestyle relay belonging to Delaware, with a bit of a mini upset victory up in lane number 6. And now we have an opportunity almost a bit to slow the competition down ever so slightly. For the first time, all 8 lanes used as we get to what will be the 2 longest events of this evening, the women's and men's 500-yard freestyle. One last confirmation towards the near side of the swimmers who are occupying all 8 lanes. And we mentioned that this is one of the preliminary competitions that we have already had this morning. 44 total swimmers took place in the preliminary competition this morning. The pool size, no pun intended, brought down to 24 in this evening as the women's 500-yard freestyle heat one competition is underway. Down in lanes 1 through lanes number 8. For Bucknell, the freshman Tessa Feld in lane number 2. A freshman from Delaware, Erin Richards. In lane number 3, a sophomore from Davidson, Ginny Thorson. Lane number 4, we'll have Amelia Hines, a sophomore out of Brown. Her teammate, junior Dana Lee, is in lane number 5. Judy Liu, a senior for Delaware, is in lane 6. Her teammate, sophomore Dylan Eldridge, is in lane 7. As the senior from Brown, Isabel Shapiro, rounds it out up in lane number 8. And the bottom 7 lane swimmers, not a lot separating the 7 notably. A slight advantage up in lane number 6. That is the senior Judy Liu out of Delaware that has helped lead the 8 swimmers through the early parts of this competition. Liu finished 20th. With a final time of a 5, or at least the seated time was a 5:11.08. Her final time a 5:03.93. Only 4 other swimmers behind her qualifying, and she has the early head start of this one. A body length ahead up in lane number 7, and Dylan Eldridge, her Delaware teammate. And down in lane number 4, Amelia Hines, a sophomore out of Brown. The spotters towards the right, putting the number 7 number down. All swimmers on the lead lap here in this one early on. We expect the final winner of this competition to have a time potentially as low as the 4-minute 45s mark. The winner in the preliminaries was Natalie Gare, a sophomore out of Brown, who had a 4:47.5, but we could see the times go as low as the 4:45 mark by the end of this event and the end of this competition. It's a great start and really turns into a war of attrition as you get to these closing stages, these final few laps to swim against. It has been a very impressive showing, though, for the senior Judy Liu. She has been here before, one of two seniors that is swimming in this competition, with Isabel Shapiro, the senior out of Brown, 2 lanes to her right up in lane number 8, and she has extended that advantage to a full sizes body length, and now a slight push coming down in lane number 3. Ginny Thorson, the sophomore out of Davidson, is trying to make a push for second position. Not far behind, all the way down in lane number 1, the one Bucknell swimmer, the freshman Tessa Feld, is all the way down in lane number 1, sticking with the pack, as we see the pack very much even, with the one exception being in lane number 6 and Judy Liu. Past the halfway mark of this competition, you're looking at some of the lap times towards the top right. The lead swimmer still with sub 31-second lap times on the wire-to-wire. This is very much a competition. You ask any endurance swimmer that is one in the final lengths, who has that extra gear required. We're going to see that in many strides, more ways than one. Sometimes the winner is wire-to-wire, and sometimes it is those who are just kind of escaping from the pack. And now we're going to see Ginny Thorson make her move down in lane number 3. Thorson, with the spotter showing 15, making her push. And for the first time, we have a different leader here in heat number 1, and that is, in fact, Thorson, that has overtaken the Delaware swimmer Liu for first position. And now the push for the hometown Bucknell swimmer Tessa Feld, who rounds out the top 3. Feld actually had the quickest time with a 30.1. That is what some of the minor cheers are as a result of. A 30.65 in lane number 2 for Erin Richards, attempting to stay in the pack. You need to stay under 31 seconds, it seems, to stay within this heat. Now the cheers beginning to increase here as we come to the closing stages. The bell lap being run. In first position in lane number 3, Ginny Thorson, with Feld, the Bucknell swimmer, in second place here in the heat. Feld trying to make her move. The Bucknell bench is right below us, and they're cheering on the swimmer in lane number 1. That is right below them. And now a bit of a late push as well up in lane number 5. That's Dana Lee. We haven't said much of her, but Lee has had a really good stride here late. And it is those 3 swimmers trying to occupy the heat, but it is going to belong to lane number 3, and that is Ginny Thorson securing the heat victory for Davidson. First win for Davidson in a heat this evening. It was Thorson who had a very mature swim, it has to be admitted, with Lee in second. The Fordham swimmer, in fact, Stever, was down in lane number 3. That doesn't seem to be a correct one for me. Actually, that was the reset into heat number 2. So rounding it out was, in fact, Tessa Feld, the Bison swimmer, occupying the top 3. Of course, in terms of the final point tallies, it is going to be what takes place most likely in the final heat that determines this one. As we go now into the second heat of 3 in this competition at the Bucknell Invitational, heat 2 of 3 in the women's 300-yard freestyle. Starting to see a few more seniors come into fray. Bruna Di Padua, in lane number 5 is the seeded favorite, only behind Daisy Mitchell, the sophomore from Fordham, who is lane number 4. As the horn goes, lane number 1 will have the freshman out of Fordham, that is Campbell Stever. Lane number 2, a familiar swimmer, a very experienced swimmer for Bucknell, junior Sydney Detman. Lane 3 will see Zeynep Asoy, a sophomore out of Seton Hall. 4, the aforementioned Mitchell of Fordham. 5 is Di Padua, the senior from UMBC. Lane 6 will see Bella Granetsky, the senior for Delaware. A freshman teammate, and Zoe Weaker for the Blue Hens is in Wecker rather, is in lane number 7. Colby Reese rounding out the sophomore out of UMBC. She is in lane number 8. 2 laps in, and now the real determination is which swimmer is going to attempt to make their move first ahead of the pack. That's the freshman Campbell Stever, all the way down in lane number 1. That has the early advantage. In fact, it is 1 and 2 in lanes 1 and 2, as Sydney Detman, the Bison swimmer, is just behind her, just a 1/10 of a second slower in lane number 2. I think it's very rare, isn't it, that you see a swimmer lead the first lap, go wire to wire in an endurance competition, unless, especially rather, I should say, in a tournament style format that this invitational is in with the preliminaries and the like. We come ever so closer, don't we, to getting to that final top 8. Should be noted the favorite in this heat, Daisy Mitchell, swam a time just under 5 minutes of a 4:59.37. It was a very impressive swim, going 15 seconds quicker than her seeded time. Mitchell occupying lane number 4, however, still in that middle of the pack, as none of the 8 swimmers have very much separated themselves so far. It's still 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 from my count, and the confirmation as Detman has overtaken Stever for first position, the Bison swimmer, the only Bison swimmer notably in heat number 2 of this competition. It's been a very good pace set by, you have to say, all 8 swimmers. None have fallen behind the pack notably. In fact, the distance between first place and second place as of right now is about a body's length and a half, maybe. All 8 swimmers very much into it as we hit the halfway mark, and we are seeing times that seem to replicate a final swim time that will be under that 5-minute mark that we predicted here in heat number 2. There was very little separating, notably these 8 swimmers in their preliminary competition. 9th through 16th with Colby Reese out of UMBC were separated by just 3.5 seconds. We're seeing that at least through the first 10 laps, but now the separation beginning. And you're seeing that near side begin to separate themselves from the pack. That is the aforementioned Sydney Detman, the Bucknell junior, who is down in lane number 2. That is making her push for a heat victory. It is Detman with not far behind Stever of Fordham, the freshman, not far behind. And then to her right, we see Zainab Asoy attempting to keep up with the 2 in the first 2 lanes. The closest swimmer making a real push in the upper echelon lanes is in 7, the freshman out of Delaware, Zoe Wecker, who is attempting to separate herself from the far side. But Wecker doesn't exactly know what's going on the near side of the pool here. She is only about a body length away now in stride. A stride away from Sydney Detmer all the way down in lane number 2. You're going to start seeing some of the chants and some of the strategies from their fellow teammates. It's almost an advantage if you're a Bucknell swimmer in lanes 1 and 2, because you've got your bench and your teammates very much right above you. You saw that take place in the first heat with Tessa Feld, and Sydney Detman is getting a little bit of that home pool advantage here. We're starting to see the spotters turn to red and the bell being run. Bucknell has not taken a heat yet this evening, and trying to change that is the junior Sydney Detman. Overtaking in lane 1 Campbell Stever in the early goings of this competition, and she has continued to extend her advantage here. Sydney Detman, the junior, is very much an experienced presence for this Bison women's swimming side, and she is going to put on a very mature swim here in heat number 2. It is all Sydney Detman who takes the victory with a sub 5-minute swim. In fact, it's a 4:56.1. A great push in the middle lanes by Daisy Mitchell, who will take second position, and in third place as well, not far behind in lane 3, Zenepa Soy, the Seton Hall swimmer, always in the pack, rounding out the top 3. But now we get to what will be a real stars of the competition. As Sydney Detman in lane 2 gets the victory. That is the widest out lane to see victory in a heat in the, of course, very early goings of this competition and of this evening. But now we go to heat number 3, the A final of the women's 300-yard freestyle event as the swimmers exit. We got to look now at some of the diving competitions taking place on the right side. That is still the men's 1 meter taking place. That dive you just saw, primarily a 6.0 scoreline. But now back in the pool for the Heat 3 finals. The women's 500-yard freestyle is underway. And you will expect to see the 2 white caps in the middle in lanes 4 and 5 to be the heavy favorites. They both had a combined 4-second advantage from 3rd place. That is Lauren Hartle, the senior out of Delaware, who is predicted to finish 3rd. She is up in lane number 6, but the 2 brown swimmers in heat 3, in lanes 4 and 5, Natalie Gare and Crystal Ewan. Rounding out the swimmers, Kelly Byron in lane 1 for Bucknell. She is a junior. Lane T2, we'll see one of 2 freshmen in this heat out of Brown is Beatrice Stewart. She is one of 3 brown swimmers in this heat. The aforementioned Hartle, the senior out of Delaware, is in lane 3. Gare and Ewan are in lanes 4 and 5. Eli Spera in lane 6. She is a freshman out of Delaware. Lane 7 out of Bucknell. One of 2 Bucknell swimmers in this heat is Clara Renner in lane 7. And finally in lane number 8, Haley Clark, the junior out of Fordham. Already 2 laps in and already an establishment of the lead for Natalie Gare. We mentioned just how wide those 2 brown swimmers were from the rest of the competition, but those 2 times by Ewan and Gare, just a 10th of a second separating. Those are the 2 favorites, but those 2 are very much going to push each other to the brink here, we expect. The early facilitator, as mentioned, belonging to Natalie Gare, a sophomore out of Brown. Her teammate also a sophomore, and Crystal Ewan to her right. And as of now, they have already very much facilitated themselves as the top 2. We mentioned the Delaware swimmer, Lauren Hartle, is expected to finish in 3rd position, but her Delaware teammate is giving her a run early on. Up in lane 6, Eli Spera has done very well for herself early on as well. Brown, Delaware, the top 4 swimmers. As we hit the halfway mark, and we're going to see times just at 2 minutes and 20 seconds, a 2:20.9 through 250 yards swam for Natalie Gare, who is in 1st position, and she is even looking to get her teammate a body's length away plus. Natalie Gare a second quicker, notably, at the halfway mark compared to her preliminary time. She had a 2:21.8 through 250 yards swam. She has expanded that here in the finale, looking for a victory here in the Bucknell Invitational. Brown notably did not compete in the Bucknell Invitational last season. It was Seton Hall senior Allie Wagner that took 1st position. Her final time was a 4:44.9. Bucknell's is Clara Renner, who today is in lane number 7, took 2nd in that competition with a 4:48.5. And as of now, it is Brown, new to this invitational this season and new to this event, that has looked to take over this event. They were upset in the men's 200-yard freestyle relay. They took the crown in the women's 200-yard freestyle relay, and they're looking to make it 2 events of 2 here on the women's side of things. And it has been a wire-to-wire lead for Natalie Gare, the sophomore out of Brown, whose seated time of 4:47.5 is 4 seconds quicker than any other swimmer. Her preliminary time was 4 seconds quicker than any other swimmer not on her own school. As we approach the bell lap here, and we expected a close one, but Natalie Gare has made this very much a drama-free showing through 450 yards swam, and now coming to the final lengths. We are expected to see what is looking to be a very impressive swim. Her teammate Crystal Ewan about a body's length and a half. There's a real fight for third place between two Delaware swimmers, Eli Spera and Lauren Hartzell. But this has been an event dominated in lane number 4 and dominated by Natalie Garr, who takes the victory in the women's 500-yard freestyle. Crystal Ewing settling for second. It was a great push in lane 6 for Eli Spera, who will take third position with a time of a 4:50.01. Hartzell, her Delaware teammate, in fourth. Renner for Bucknell, who took second in this competition, having to settle for fifth with a 4:53.4. The swimmers taking heaves of breaths on the left-sided wall after what was a very thrilling competition. We are seeing the diving competition take place. 8 divers here in the 1-meter diving competition that will go alongside this 500-meter freestyle, as we mentioned. We will have their names in just a second. We'll have it while the first event takes place. The other diving competition is the women's 3-meter dive that will take place following the men's 1-meter. And now underway for the men's 500-yard freestyle with 3 heats, the C's, the B's, and the A's. With the C's going first, that is underway. Davidson, the domineering of the C-seeded sides, with 3 Davidson swimmers in the middle lanes. The 1 through 8 will see Finn Franks, a sophomore out of Bucknell in lane number 1. Kevin Yum, the number 2 lane, a freshman as well. Out of forward, 2 seniors out of Davidson follow suit in lanes 3 and 4 with Fletcher Smith and Jackson McDonald. Lane 5, another Davidson swimmer, this time a sophomore, and Robbie Vada. Lane 6, a UMBC freshman, that is Felipe Tavera Lira. Lane 7 will have Christopher Chang, a senior out of Brown. And finally in lane 8, a freshman out of Delaware, that is Cody Lonsberry. The leaders of the preliminary in the 500-meter had a swim of 4 minutes and 22 seconds. And we could even see a swim in the low 4:20s, dare I say even the 4-teens, to win this competition this evening. Brown historically pushing the pace in the first few events, with the 3 events seen so far, 2 being taken by the Bears, and they are the favorites in this event as well. More on that in just a moment as we go through 8 laps swam, and an emphatic advantage in lane number 4 belonging to Jackson McDonald. And then you have all 7 swimmers. You see it on your screens with the exception of McDonald in lane 4, near simultaneous as they go for the there and back, completing this lap, which will mark the halfway point of this competition, of this event rather, in heat number 1. The only event, notably, that Brown, as we mentioned, has not won so far was the men's 200-yard freestyle. Delaware getting an upset victory, predicted to finish 2 seconds behind the Bears and 2 seconds behind Fordham, who were the 2 heavyweights in the competition. It was the Blue Hens that took it. And Brown looking to get back on the men's side of things with Delaware in that early advantage. Now we're seeing the rest of the pack catch up to McDonald, the Davidson senior, including his senior out of Davidson teammate Fletcher Smith, who is down in lane number 3, closing into about a body's width. But all 4 swimmers to McDonald's right have now gone level with him, including up in lane number 7, Christopher Chang, the senior out of Brown. What can Brown do for you? Well, for Chang, it's giving him almost the advantage here, as now we see the swimmers get on their feet in celebration at the lead change. That lead only lasting for so long, as in lane 5, we see Robbie Vada, one of the 3 Davidson middle swimmers, but him, a sophomore, have a narrow look at the lead. In fact, he does have that slight advantage, and Davidson's bench absolutely loving it. It is Davidson and Brown in lanes 5 and lane 7. Robbie Vada and Christopher Chang. Vada now a bit of an advantage after that lap. Will touch the wall on the opposite side for the second to last time in this heat with the narrowest of margins. Look out as well for Felipe Tavera Lira, who is in between the two in lane number 6, but it will be the top 4 lanes at the wall first. And look out as well down in lane number 1. How about Finn Franks, the sophomore out of Bucknell, who has actually taken 3rd position out of nowhere from the near side. But it looks like this final cut, this heat at least, will be taken by the swimmers in the upper 4 lanes. How about this push up in lane number 8? That's Cody Lonsberry, the freshman. How about Lonsberry kicking it into extra gear, trying to take the C seed, and he's done it. Oh, out of nowhere, Cody Lonsberry saving his best lap for his last. He beats the competition of any other swimmer by 0.3 of a second on that final lap to take the heated victory in dramatic fashion. Delaware have been the cardiac swimmers here so far with an upset victory, and well, it's only in the C seed, of course. That's what many will say. A very impressive swim by Cody Lonsberry, the freshman out of Delaware. That is a confidence-boosting heat victory. I would say heat 2 and heat number 3, they've got something certainly to try and live off of the billing there. We saw a plentiful lead changes through the last 3 or 4 laps of the competition. It was very much up in the air who was going to win it. It seemed like up in lane 5, Robbie Vada had it sealed until a late push by Cody Lonsberry secured the victory. And now in heat number 2 we go. In the 4th event that we will see today out of 12, it is the men's 500-yard freestyle. Heat 2, the B final. In lanes number 1 through 8 occupied. Lane 1, the freshman out of Davidson is Henry Shoemaker. Lane 2, the freshman out of Brown, the 2 freshmen of 3 in this heat. That is Will Seco. Lane 3, a sophomore out of UMBC, Andrew McEacher. In lane number 4, a junior out of Brown, Jake Lowry. In 5, we'll have Davis Moore. He is a junior out of Davidson. Lane number 6, we'll have Zachary McLeod, a freshman out of Seton Hall. The first time we've seen Seton Hall in this event. Lane 7 is Nick Zaharescu, a junior out of UMBC. And in finalizing it in lane number 8, a sophomore out of Davidson, that is Matthew Schnowski. As we set to conclude our 3rd lap of 10 in the 2nd heat of 3 in the men's 500-yard freestyle. The early advantage belonging into lane number 3, Andrew McEacher. This is expected to be a very close heat with lanes 3, 4, and 5, according to their seeded time, separated by just 0.3 of a second. Jake Lowry is the favorite, who had the seeded advantage by just 0.03 of a second ahead of Davis Moore, the junior out of Davidson. Moore in lane number 5, who has had a bit of a slow start admittedly towards the back of the pack, but none so slow in lane number 3 for Dylan Felt. Rather, not Dylan Felt. In fact, it was the aforementioned McEacher out of UMBC who has that early advantage. Zachary McLeod, the first Seton Hall representation we'll see. The freshman is in 2nd position up in lane number 6 after that swim. The times in the mid to high 27 seconds at this rate. At the halfway mark in the competition, and the lead still belonging to that middle lane in McEacher, with McLeod not far behind. McLeod, rather, not far behind in this one. War of attrition still very much holding. We have done 3 women's heats, and we are now in the second heat of 3 in the 500-yard freestyle, and I can only recall one swimmer, Natalie Garr, in the Heat 3A final who took the event to lead from wire to wire, and even then her teammate Crystal Ewan had that slim advantage through the first couple of laps swam before Garr was able to very much take the competition. And just as we mentioned it, we're starting to see a potential lead change. McLeod now in first, and now the push coming all the way at the bottom. That is going to be Henry Shoemaker, the freshman out of Davidson, who has the second place position. McLeod not far behind. It is still McLeod in that first position. And now in the middle lanes, lane number 4, there's Jake Lowry, who is beginning to make his push as well. The tempo increasing here. And the times are only getting quicker. A 27.3 was the quickest. That was all the way back in 7th position. The leaders still very much in the 28s. The bell lap set to be rung, and we are seeing a real 4-way run here for first position in lanes 1, 6, 3, and 4. That is Shoemaker, McLeod, McEachern, and Lowry occupying the top 4, and there's not much separating them. Well, we mentioned that the first heat of 3 that we have seen provided a lot of drama. It was going to be a lot to live up for, but we are going to see some drama here in the dying embers. It's McLeod with the near advantage, but Shoemaker isn't far behind. McLeod, though, making that late run, and he's got the victory. The first win for a Seton Hall swimmer in heat number 2 with a 4:26.9. Shoemaker behind by less than a second. McEachern and Lowry in 3rd and 4th in lane 5. Moore out of Davidson taking the 5th place position. I would say Zachary McLeod almost took the drama out of that bell lap, continuing his first place day. Only a freshman, one of just 3 freshmen swimming in that heat, having a very mature swim in the final couple of laps to get the Heat B victory. But now, in heat number 3, it is the A-seeded final. And this is one that has a clear-cut favorite in the form of Christian Dutoft, the sophomore out of Brown, who led the preliminaries with a time of a 4:22.06, a whole 9 seconds quicker than his seeded time. We go now into heat 3, the A final. Brown trying to get their first men's event victory on their second time of asking. The occupiers in this one will have 5 of the 8 lanes taken by Brown swimmers. One of the 3 non-Brown swimmers is in lane 1. That is Jack Callan, the graduate out of Seton Hall. A Seton Hall freshman took heat 2, notably. One of 5 Brown swimmers in lane 2. That is Matt Williamson, a junior. The second of 3 non-Brown swimmers is senior out of Davidson, Dylan Felt. The other non-Brown swimmer, by the way, is Quinn McPhail. He is in lane number 6. In lane 4, and the favorite is Christian Dutoft, a sophomore. He's got a freshman teammate, though, to his left in lane number 5 that's expected to give him competition. That's Rory O'Connor. And rounding out in lane 7 and 8, both in bear colors, is James Kershaw, a sophomore, and Max Hardart, a senior. Well, so much for a swim that has a clear-cut favorite. We don't expect separation yet, but as we conclude now, it will be the 3rd lap, very much separating the middle of the pack. 4, 3, and 5 in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, respectively. Christian Dutoft, though, this is his competition to lose, according to the favorites and the predictors. Should be noted, by the way, his spotter is notably counting down on the cards. You just saw it go away from your screen, but pay attention to it when it comes around next time. Rather than the other swimmers, and very much all of the swimmers that I expect to see counting up in terms of the laps, it seems that Dutoft prefers to count down. Look to the right side of your screen in lane number 5. Dutoft, who is in 2nd position. Everyone's showing the 9, that is the lap that they're on, except the spotter for Dutoft, who is counting down on the laps rather than up on the laps. Rory O'Connor, though, his teammate, trying to spoil the sophomore. He has about a body length advantage here and is looking to try and grow it. Down in lane 3, the non-brown swimmer, who is the best of the non-brown swimmers. Davidson's is Dylan Felt, a senior, who is in lane 3. He placed third in preliminaries with a 4:24.84. That was just 2/10 behind O'Connor for third position, but right now it is O'Connor leading the way. Already very much past the halfway point in lap 7 of 10. O'Connor with the advantage, a body's length advantage, in fact, over Christian Dutoft. In fact, Dutoft is in third place with the Davidson swimmer Dylan Felt narrowly ahead of him. But you would imagine that Dutoft is going to act as if he's been shot out of a cannon in a few laps' time. Will he be able to make the push? Meanwhile, O'Connor continuing to lead the timesheets. He was 4/10 quicker than his teammate Dutoft on that previous lap. Look at this from Rory O'Connor, the freshman out of Brown. He is continuing what is a very stellar swim at the moment. Well, we predicted Brown to win, but we did not predict O'Connor, who did place second in preliminaries. And how about that, a 25.75 now. That's almost a second quicker than Dutoft, who notably has overtaken Felt for second position. This is going to be a lot of water for Dutoft to overcome, and this is becoming what has been Rory O'Connor's swim here. How about this? Rory O'Connor, who is 2.5 seconds behind his teammate, will go into the final lap about 4 seconds quicker. This has been a very memorable swim for the freshman. Rory O'Connor making his name known at the Kinney Auditorium. The freshman will lead Brown to their first men's victory on their second time of asking, and it's going to be an emphatic victory in lane number 5. It's a 4:17.2. Incredible time. And it is going to also be a pool record time at the Auditorium. O'Connor making his name known in more ways than one. A 4:17.2, 7.5 seconds quicker than his preliminary time. And that is a very special time indeed. Dutoft was 2/10 quicker than his preliminary time, but not enough to overcome his teammate Rory O'Connor. A 4:17.2. Thompson of David, or rather not Thompson of Davidson, it was Felt of Davidson taking and rounding out the top 3, with Matt Williamson of Brown in 4th in lane number 2. How about that for competition? That was a stellar event in the men's 500-yard freestyle. Heats 1, 2, and 3 all providing a show. And now we speed it up as the women's 200-yard individual medley will take place. Lanes 1 through 8 occupied in all 3 of these heats. We are seeing some excellent crowds. We're seeing phones drop left and right after an eye-watering performance for Rory O'Connor in the previous competition. But now the next event, the women's 200-yard individual medley, lanes 1 through 8. Brianna Smith, the sophomore out of UMBC. Sydney G, a sophomore out of Bucknell. A junior out of Davidson in lane 3 is Ann Thompson. Brooke Manning is a junior out of Brown. In lane 5, Martina Capps, who is also a Brown athlete, a freshman. And in lane number 6, Bianca Bukovics, a sophomore from Seton Hall. Bucknell freshman Kennedy Ann DeVoe is in lane 7. Lindsay Neighbor rounding it out. She is a freshman out of Seton Hall, up in lane number 8. They're already on the backstrokes here. And down in lane number 3, the advantage belonging to Ann Thompson. I always think that the individual medley is where you see some of the sharpest changes in lead, just based off of the stroke style of these swimmers. The freestyle ends it out, of course, but swimmers, for those new to swimming, will also have to perform the backstroke, the breaststroke, and the butterfly stroke throughout the span of 50 yards apiece. Jumping up into the pool, head first and chest out in lane number 4. Brooke Manning has the early advantage in heat 1 of 3. And she will touch the wall first. Manning out of Brown, Bukovics of Seton Hall in second, up in lane number 6. And this is where it gets a lot quicker. That was a good push-off down in lane number 2. Sydney G, the Bucknell sophomore, not far behind the pack at the moment. In fact, she's in second position. But back in lane number 4, we see Brooke Manning. And it is going to be Manning's to lose. A body lengths ahead in first position, and she will take first position, Manning, with a 2:03.91. G not far behind, an impressive swim for her. The sophomore will take second with a 2:05.3, but that will only be 2 seconds slower than Manning, who took a quite emphatic heat 1 win. It had to be a sub 2-minute time to win this competition. Last year, senior out of Fordham, Ainhoa Martin got the victory out of Fordham with a 1:59.5 to get the victory for Fordham. Now in heat number 2, it just might be another sub 2-minute time required to get the victory here. There is an emphatic favorite in this competition. Victoria Novinsky, a senior out of Delaware, placed 5 seconds quicker than any other competitor in the preliminaries. That is going to be in heat number 3. We're back here now in heat number 2. The competitors in this one, lanes 1 through 8. Nora Rappmeyer, a junior out of Davidson. Caroline Furbe, a freshman also out of Davidson. A Delaware junior is Marisa Schenkenberger. In lane number 4, Kyla Kelly, a senior from Bucknell. And then it is Brown swimmers all the way up in lanes 5 through 8. We'll have junior Lizzie Washburn, seniors Amy Barrow, Caitlin Holmes, and Catherine Yu. Those are all swimmers as they're onto the backstroke. And that looks like Lizzie Washburn, one of those 4 Brown swimmers, all wearing those white caps in lanes 4 through 8 towards the right side of your screen. She is on the lower of those 4, and she has the lead through the next stroke. The chance beginning on the fly stroke, and now down an advantage in lane number 3. That is Marisa Schenkenberger, has been able to use that stroke to her advantage a bit. Schenkenberger leading the way. She got a great push off. How about the run though on the near side? In lane number 1, that is Nora Rappmeyer, the junior out of Davidson. That is very much holding true. In fact, Rappmeyer just might have the advantage as they touch the wall. Just narrowly rather behind Schenkenberger and Barrow from Brown, all the way up in lane number 6, who had an excellent end to it as well. But it is still Marisa Schenkenberger. We've seen Delaware take heats in dramatic fashion. It'll have to be a dramatic victory here. Washburn making a great push, though, on the freestyle stroke. Into the final 25 they go. Amy Barrow's also in front. In fact, Barrow might be in front. In the middle lanes, down in lane 4, Kyla Kelly making a push as well. It's going to come down to the timing screens, and Barrow's done it. Amy Barrow taking victory by very slim margins indeed. A 2:03.6, a 1/10.5 quicker by Kyla Kelly, who had an excellent final 50 yards on the freestyle, but it will be the Brown senior Barrow that got the heat win. But now we turn to heat number 3, and one of the country's best, Victoria Novinsky, in lane number 4. She is placed 5 seconds quicker than any other swimmer. It should be noted she is definitely going to be competing for the pool record. That is 157.1. That is an 11-year-old record set by Megan Robb back in 2014. Watch out for her in lane number 4. The other competitors here in heat number 3. In lanes 1 through 8, Torin McGillis, a sophomore out of Delaware. Summer Kimilewski, the senior from Brown, a graduate student from UMBC, is in lane number 3. That is Alice Marini. The aforementioned Victoria Novinsky is in lane 4, the senior from Delaware. Amelia Bark in lane 5. She is a sophomore from Brown. Another sophomore, this one out of Fordham, In lane 6 is Karina Canary. Piper Price is another Delaware swimmer, one of 3 in this competition. She's a freshman in lane 7. The only Bucknell swimmer in this final heat is Virginia Hastings. She is a junior for the Bison. Actually having a very good start to this competition, admittedly, all the way up in lane number 8. But this has come as advertised through the backstroke. A body's length and a half advantage in lane number 4, and all of a sudden, she's going to be competing against the clock here very quickly. The quickest backstroke actually belonged to Marini out of UMBC, who is down in lane number 3. As they go to the next stroke in lane number 4, Victoria Novinsky. Her preliminary time was just 0.3 slower than the pool record, set in 2014 by Megan Robb. She's trying, most likely, to beat that record at this stage because there is simply no swimmer in her vicinity as they go into the freestyle swim. And here comes Victoria Novinsky, a 1:28.9 going into the final lengths. This is going to be a very competitive swim in the national context of this competition, and this could very much be a historical swim here at the Kinney Auditorium. Victoria Novinsky, a wire-to-wire victory, and now a look at the time for the pool record, and she's done it. A 1:56.73, a 27.8 final length to take the 200-yard individual medley. It was hers from start to finish. And so Victoria Novinsky on paper, the heavy favorite, and she showed it and then some. Even placed almost a second quicker than her preliminary time. That was a 1:57.4, her 1:56.7. Enough for the program record, which I believe they have just announced. And on to the next competition, and this will be another one in which Brown are the favorites once again. Or rather, as they go into the 200, it will in fact be Browns as Martin Nakey as the #1 seed. He will be over in the 3rd heat of this competition, but we go to heat 1 of this competition in the C final. 1 through 8 occupied. Frank Howden, a senior out of Davidson. The freshman out of Seton Hall is in lane 2. That is Daniel Krajewski. In lane number 3, another freshman for Bucknell. That's Jason Kellerman. Lane 4, we'll see sophomore out of Delaware, Brian Wilbur. In lane 5, Finn Quisted, a junior from Brown. His Brown teammate, 2 to his left, sophomore James Gottfried and freshman Trey Mastandria. And rounding it out in lane number 8, a sophomore out of Delaware, that is James Haney. They're on the backstroke here, and in lane 5, Finn Quisted has the narrowest of advantages going into the next turn at the halfway mark in the men's 200-yard individual medley competition. This is going to be event 6 of 12 with the 50-yard, 400-yard medley relay rounding out the swimming events here in this competition. The women's 3-meter diving, meanwhile, is taking place in just a few moments' time, but back in the swimming pool here. A excellent performance from start to finish in lane number 5 for Finn Quisted. The C-seeded heat number 1 competition has been dominated by him going into the freestyle swims. The closest to him is actually the swimmer closest to him, who is a lane down in lane number 4. That is Brian Wilbur, the sophomore out of Delaware, but it is going to be Finn Quisted from start to finish, taking the heat, a 1:49.2. That is going to be a 1.5 seconds quicker than the swimmer in lane number 3, Jason Kellerman, who had an excellent end to his swim in lane 3 to take 2nd position. And in lane 4, Brian Wilbur evening it out, the sophomore out of Delaware. So the win goes to Finn Quisted, the junior out of Brown. And you want to talk about dominance for what this Bears team will do in this competition. When we go to heat number 3, we are going to see 6 of the 8 lanes taken by Bears swimmers. Meanwhile, 3 of the 8 taken by Delaware swimmers in heat number 2 as the B final is underway. Lanes 1 through 8 all occupied. In lane 1, Dante Buenadonna, a sophomore out of Bucknell. In lane 2, we'll see Tyler Kay, a freshman himself out of UMBC. His teammate, also a freshman, and Quinn Marchionini is in lane 3. Lane 4, we'll see Dylan Smolders, a senior out of Delaware. In lanes 5 and 6, 2 other Delaware swimmers, juniors Manuel Osorio and Max Moan. In lane 7, we'll see a freshman out of Bucknell, Drew Davis. And rounding out in lane number 8, Jake Karolf. He is a sophomore out of Seton Hall University. To the backstroke they go, and to the Blue Hens they follow. In lanes number 5 and 6, Osorio and Moan in first and second position. Times just over and under the 50-second mark at the halfway mark going into the flies. And that is where we're going to see some of the rest of the pack follow suit. Down in lane 3, Quinn Marchionini making a really good pace down in lane number 3. Marchionini entering the fray. Still ahead up in lane 6, though, is Max Moan going into the freestyle leg. And they continue to go forward, and now they are very much evening out. Down in lane number 2, Tyler Kay making a push, the UMBC swimmer. Both UMBC swimmers on the near side making their names known. Up in lane number 6, Max Moan had the lead for a majority of it. He's trying to hold on to it. Down in lane 3 and 2, though, the 2 UMBC swimmers chasing. And it's going to belong to Tyler Kay, the UMBC freshman that took the heat. Martin Nagy, the victor in that one. We apologize for some of the technical difficulties that we have seen so far here in the Kitty Auditorium. It's a great crowd. Sometimes some plugs and some wires get untucked and unplugged, but we are back here at the Natatorium here in Lewisburg. The Martin Nagy sophomore brown swimmer taking victory in the men's 200-yard individual medley, who had a very impressive time of a 1:44.32. To see the victory off, that was 2 whole seconds quicker. And now the women's 50-yard freestyle. We got to go quick. Naya Lagarda, McKenna Smith, Abby Steinbrook, Alishka Hajek, Sarah Catrone, Bella Granetsky, Addison Constantinitis, and Jennifer Bolden are the 8 swimmers from lane 1 through lane number 8. It is going to be nip and tuck all throughout this heat and through this event. In event number 7, the women's 50-yard freestyle. Oh, take your pick. Who has the advantage? That looks like lane 4's is Alishka Hajek. That is in the advantage initially. Good push in lane number 5 from Catrone, though, and it is Catrone that gets it. The Bison swimmer taking heat number 1. For those of you just tuning in, we apologize for some of the technical difficulties. A wire unplugged, it seemed, in our audio course. If you're just joining in, .32. Tyler Kay took heat number 2 for UMBC. Heat 1 taken by Finn Quisted in the C final. That was the men's 200-yard individual medley. Now in the women's 50-yard freestyle, heat 1 in the C final, taken by Sarah Catron. And now heat number 2 of the B final, lanes 1 through 8. Lillian Klingensmith, Eva McIver Jenkins, Lexi Lundell, Judy Liu, Angelina Chen, Nema Hazel, Lily Robinson, and Isabella Diefenthaler in lanes 1 through 8. 3 freshman swimmers in the near, far, and middle parts of the pool respectfully. They are even Steven going through the first 25. Who had the best push? Up in lane 7, it was a good one. That's Lily Robinson as the rest of the pack begins to follow suit. Lane number 3, Lexi Lundell, though, making a good run late. Who's got the final screens? And it is going to be Robinson that held on for the win. A 23.2 for Lily Robinson, who had the early advantage, and I almost wondered if the rest of the pack would follow. It was a good push by Angelina Chen to take second, but it's Robinson the victor. And now on to heat number 3, the A final, lanes 1 through 8. The favorite is UMBC swimmer Ashley Gutschall in lane number 4. The rest of the swimmers, Saskia Aikman in lane 1, Audrey Chung in lane 2, Morgan Lukanak in lane 3, Ashley Gutschall as mentioned in 4, Irma Dorotovich in lane 5, Kelly Dolce in lane 6, Victoria Castro in lane 7, and Angie Ragazzoni in lane number 8, the senior. On to the near side, a good push for Chung early on in lane number 2. In lane number 3, though, that looks like Lukanik that had the advantage. Who had the best push? It looks like Lukanik down in lane number 3. She's got the advantage here early on. Lukanik is leading the line. Lukanik trying to get the upset. Lane 4, the push from Gutschall, but Lukanik takes it. Lukanik from Gutschall from Aikman all the way down in lane number 1. A terrific swim for the freshman, as Morgan Lukanik, the Brown senior, secures the victory for the Bears in the women's 50-yard freestyle. Turning now to the men's, as we're starting to see some of the scores update on your screens on the bottom right, the women's and men's team score. We'll have that updated to you as well when they're official. We turn now to the men's, and if you are looking to win this competition, you're going to need a sub 20-second time. 1 through 8, the occupiers. Will Cross in heat 1 with Kanan Blamer, Cal Lefterov, Misha Semenov, Mitch McLean, Finn Russell, Tucker Peterson, and Colin Smith, the 8 swimmers. And that looked like a very good jump down in lane number 2. That's Kanan Blamer, the freshman out of Brown. The rest of the pack, though, starting to follow suit. Lane 4, that's Misha Semenov, making a great run through the last 25, and Semenov gets it. The Fordham graduate student will take the heat at a time of a 20.4. But as mentioned, based off of the seeding times, it will have to be a sub 20 most likely. 2 sub-20 times, both belonging to Delaware seniors. That will be in Heat 3, but now Heat 2. Lanes 1 through 8, Dylan Felt, Max Macher, Sean Niels, Toma Adam, Donovan Jeng, Brady Robitis, Michael Klimajewski, and Jonathan Gim are the 8. Looked like a great jump all the way up in lane number 8. That's Jonathan Gim, but out of the pool they came, and that was Toma Adam that got out of it and ahead first down in lane number 4. Lane 5, Donovan Jeng not far behind. In fact, Jeng might have a slight advantage coming into the last 12 yards or so. Good push in lane 4 for Adam. It's going to be neck and neck at the line, and it's a tie between Adam and Jeng in lanes 4 and 5, 20.23 each. Well, we mentioned they were close. We didn't think they were that close. But they will finish level with a 20.23 on the timing screens. Third was the great run up in lane number 8 from Jonathan Gim. He had the best start on my view on the jump. He will take third position in the heat. But now, heat number 3. Here we go. 3 Delaware swimmers in the middle. Lanes 1 through 8. Daniel Ribeiro of Fordham. Christopher Zhang of Brown. Cade Snyder, Matvei Nemikanov, and Addison Collins of Delaware. 2 UMBC freshmen in lane 6 and 7, Stefano Perez and Braden Weiss, and in lane 8, it's David Toppy, the junior out of Fordham. The Delaware triplet are the favorites in the middle of the pool. Who gets the best? The first out of the pool is down in lane 2. That is Christopher Zhang, but it's a good lead in lane 4. It's Matvei Nemikanov getting to the time first. Matvei Nemikanov with a 19.69. The quickest time, including the preliminaries. He will be the only swimmer going under 20. A 20 flat for Collins in lane number 5, who takes second. Third place belonging to UMBC's Perez with a 20.14. Matvei Nemikanov, the victor, the senior out of Delaware, beating his seeded time, just a 1/10 of a second needed to get the victory in the men's 50-yard freestyle. And now we will turn to our final event, but not before an intermission, as some of the swimmers will take a deep breath. When we return, we will have our women's and men's 400-yard medley relay. That is coming up next, live on YouTube. You're tuned in to the Bucknell Invitational. all set to go here for the women's 400-yard medley relay. We are in heat 1 of 3, the C's, the B's, followed by the 4.0, the A's in lanes 2 through 7. The C teams of UMBC in lane 2, Bucknell in lane number 3. The favorites in the CC, Delaware, is in lane number 4. Brown is in lane number 5. Fordham in lane 6, and Davidson in lane number 7. Alongside our executive producer Adam Contini, director Maria Rizzuta, and camera operator Elizabeth DeRoba, I'm Nicholas Severini, taking you through the conclusion of day 1 of 3 here in this competition, and a solid lead to start, notably for Brown through the backstroke, stroke 1 of 4. The medley relay, one of the longer competitions, the longest competition that we will see this evening in the team event, and Brown very much emphatically in front. That's a sub 55 seconder. That's competitive. A 54.2. Bucknell and Delaware in lanes 3 and 4, rounding out the top 3. Fordham, UMBC, and Davidson as they go into the next stroke. The breaststroke in play here, and once again the occupiers in first place, resembling the Bears of Brown. Those white swim caps have been chased by many a swimmer so far in this competition, and that fact continues to remain true. Following the C seeds, we'll see the B seeds in heat 2, followed by the finale, the A seeds in heat number 3, with the men's side of things rounding out this evening's competition. Brown in the lead in both the women and the men's overall score lines. For the women's side of things, second place is Delaware, while third place will be occupied by the hometown Bucknell Bison. On to leg 3 of 4, following the breast and into the fly. Or rather, the fly into the breast, rather. It is Brown in first from Bucknell, from Delaware, from UMBC, from Davidson, from Fordham. The 6 teams competing here in this seed. We got through the quickest competition, now on to one of the longest, of course, which saw Delaware, Brown, and Fordham take heats 3, 2, and 1 in the men's 50-yard freestyle. Delaware was the overall winner. The women's 50-yard freestyle taken by Brown's is Lily Robinson. Those 2 schools have stood out the most so far in the early context of this one. As now we get into the final legs, the final swimmers on the mats here, at least. In heat number 1, Brown has extended their lead to about a quarter a pool's length. Call it roughly 10 to 15 yards or so. Bucknell in second, Delaware in third. A real close battle for fourth in this heat between UMBC as well as Davidson, Fordham rounding it out. But this heat belonged from wire to Brown once again. In heat number 1 of 3, the C team's on, and it's Brown's C team shining with the victory, a 3:17.4. Tough competition for second. Bucknell will take it. Rather, on to the opposite end as we have one more heat to go. I apologize for that. Apologies there, but it will, in fact, be Brown's getting the victory, but second place very much will be closer. Forgot there's 2 laps here on the final leg. My apologies, folks. But there is no mistake about what Brown has done in heat number 1 in the women's 400-yard medley relay. The C seed shining. A 3:44.5. And how about a late overtake for Delaware? They'll steal second place, most likely from Bucknell, and they have. A 3:51.3, a 0.2 of a second difference. UMBC climbing to 4th place. Davidson and Fordham very close towards the end, separated by just 0.4 of a second, rounding out heat number 1. The favorites, I wouldn't say emphatically, but overall are Delaware. In fact, their A seed, B seed, and C seed, just according to the seeding, are 1st, 2nd, and 4th. There are notably no preliminaries for this event due to it being a team competition. That's going to be similar to what we will see tomorrow as well, the specialized swim events. The individual medley of 400 yards, the 100 flies, the 200 free, the 100 breast, and the 100 backstroke will be the morning preliminary events. That will also be the final events in the evening, along with the 800 100-yard freestyle relay that will conclude tomorrow night, and the 200-yard medley relay, which will start proceedings. Also on Saturday, notably, just one diving event, the women's 1-meter dive that has taken place. The men's 3-meter dive will take place on Sunday. All highlighting what has been a stellar day of swimming and diving here at the Kinney Natatorium in Lewisburg. Brown, the winners in Heat 1 of 3 of the C-seeded Heat number 1, and now the B-seeded Heat number 2. And there is a clear favorite, and that belongs to the Blue Hens of Delaware according to the seeding. Brown 4.1 seconds behind according to the seeding. Bucknell expected to be third. Brown 272 women's team points. That is 50 almost ahead of Delaware. And a full 100 behind third place is Bucknell as the B final in Heat number 2 is underway. Now lanes 1 through 7. Seton Hall enters the mix. They are going to be in lane number 1. Davidson in lane number 2. Bucknell, the Bison, in lane 3 here in Lewisburg. Delaware are the favorites. They are in lane number 4 on the backstroke in first. Brown right next to him through the first 50. In lane number 5, Fordham in lane number 6 up top. Trailing lane 7's is UMBC through the back. And with the final 25 of the backstroke, it is Delaware from Brown from Bucknell. It is those three familiar schools for the women have dominated the team events and the individual events as well, especially those two who are in first and second. Better jump off from my view from Delaware, but a better swim through underwater from Delaware, and they are going to have the slim advantage going into the next stroke. Bucknell now trailing into fourth position on my view as Davidson had a great end to the previous backstroke and are now neck and neck with Bucknell on the near side. And there's almost a three-way tie for fifth position between the two up top in UMBC and Fordham, and then all the way at the bottom in Seton Hall. The final 50 of leg 2 of 3, and Delaware and Brown, you simply cannot tell the difference. They are simultaneous nearly going into this final leg second leg before leg 3 of 4 is set to begin. We can now confirm it is on the near side in lane number 2, Davidson overtaking Bucknell for third position. Brown getting to the line first. They have an advantage of just 0.6 of a second ahead of Delaware, ahead of Davidson, ahead of Bucknell, ahead of Fordham, ahead of Seton Hall, ahead of UMBC. All very competitive times, none reaching the 36-second mark, and they are tied to the hip here. Brown and Delaware on the next stroke. In the breaststroke now, that underhanded swim. Delaware seeming to get a little bit of an advantage all of a sudden. Just sort of in a very nip and tuck affair, getting slightly ahead of that white swim cap. But there have been some better pushes, notably off the wall from the Brown swimmer, that it's kept them ahead. But for how long? Because when they're in the middle of the pool, Delaware is leading, and they are going to lead by the narrowest of margins, 0.06 of a second. Going into the freestyle swim, it's anybody's guess here for the BC title. Delaware edging Brown here for first position. There's going to be a real battle for third place as well. A very close battle between Davidson and Bucknell, and then trying to enter the mix for third position up top is Fordham. But this is going to be the stars of the show so far this evening for the women. Brown and Delaware. Delaware and Brown going into the final leg of this one. Who's going to get the better push off here? They collide forward, and Brown extends their advantage now on the anchor leg into the final 10 yards of this sprint. and it's going to be Brown taking the victory with a 3:42.6 ahead of Delaware. Big close match here for third, and Bucknell narrowly gets third place by less than 0.2 of a second from Davidson. Fordham slowing a bit on the anchor leg. We'll have to settle for fifth as Seton Hall and UMBC rounded out. So Brown takes Heat 1 and Heat 2, but as we know, it is going to be Heat number 3 where all the spoils are shared. And it is one which, once again, Delaware are listed as the favorites, but by less than 2 seconds is Brown, who are in lane number 5. And what we saw in the previous heat, we expect to be very similar for here in Heat number 3. When you just include the heats, Brown has now taken 4 of the last 5, at least a share, of the heat wins, and 5 of the last 6. Sarah Catron of Bucknell took Heat 1 of the women's 50-yard freestyle. Misha Semenov took the men's 50-yard freestyle in Heat 1, and then a share of the Heat 2 final to Toma Adam. The only swimmers in the way of Bear dominance. It has been an impregnable evening for the Brown Bear swimming team, for the women and the men, and they're looking to flex their muscles here in the men team score. But before that, Heat 3 of the women's 400-yard medley relay. 1 through 7 are where the lanes are occupied. Seton Hall in lane number 1 is expected to drop back. They are a whole, on my count, 13 seconds slower than the next slowest. That's Davidson in lane 7. UMBC is in lane 2 as Fordham is in lane number 6. Lane 3, Bucknell. Lane 5 is Brown. Lane 4 is Delaware. Through the first 50, take your pick. They're actually tied. Well, I guess you would have been right either way. A 26.44 on the first 50 yards here in the backstroke. The chants raining down from both the spectators, the fans, and the athletes. It is standing room only if you are an athlete on the far side and the near side. Through the first leg, Delaware will have the narrowest of advantages. That can be equalized by the opening jump off of the mat. And they are about as neck and neck as you can take it. There is a 0.3 of a second difference through the first leg. On the final push-off, Brown has been able to facilitate themselves ahead through this second leg, and that looks to be the case. They're doing very well up in lane number 7. That's Davidson, who were the 6th seed going into this final heat. But Davidson, through the first leg and a half, has done a very impressive job as Davidson and Fordham start to hang around a little bit from Delaware and Brown. The pack almost closing in on the middle swimmers. UMBC and Bucknell on the near side, trying to stay in the midst of things as well in lane number 1. They're doing a very good job in doing so. That's Seton Hall. Seton Hall is actually looking to be in 3rd position here potentially. Seated 13 seconds slower than the next closest school. They have put themselves in a really good form here. But it will be Brown in first, from Delaware, from Davidson, from Fordham, from Seton Hall, from Bucknell, from UMBC. Going into leg number 3, and that's where the tempo really pushes itself. Just terrific form, isn't it? You can see this magisterial form on the stroke from the 2 swimmers in the middle. Delaware inching themselves closer to Brown here as they go into the final lap of the 3rd leg. That's a really good swim off of the wall too, and that's going to give Delaware an advantage. What a push off of the wall from the Delaware swimmer as it gets her in front. And how is the wall going to change here? Brown got off of there quite quickly. Delaware's going to have an advantage. This is an incredible final 50 yards from the Delaware swimmer on the 3rd leg. They pound them all going into the final leg now. Delaware's going to have a real advantage to have here away from Brown. Third place is Fordham up in lane number 6, but it's Delaware and Brown facing off against each other once again. Trying to spoil the Bear Bash here. Brown just notably inching themselves closer. They've cut it to a body's length going into the final leg. Brown outswam Delaware on that leg by half of a second. Can they get something on the anchor, Brown? Can Delaware hold on? It is Brown and Delaware in the middle 2 lanes fighting for the last victory. That's a really good push from Brown. They're going to be neck and neck coming into the final 25. This is incredible. Delaware had the lead. Brown, though, has the advantage coming into the wall. Who's it going to be? It's Delaware! By less than 0.2 of a second away from Brown, as Fordham will round out the top 3, just 4 seconds away. Davidson in 4th, Seton Hall with a big upset, getting all the way up into a solid position with a 3:47.4, and Bucknell rounding out the top 5. Brown was quicker on the anchor leg, but Delaware with their stellar third leg and their stellar 50-yard push on the final lap of the third leg managed them an advantage that they would not relinquish. How about that for excitement? And that is something that the men are going to look to at least replicate if you are the neutral. Delaware, again, the favorites in the men's 400-yard medley relay. But first we go to the season, which Delaware are also the quite emphatic favorites. Delaware's A, B, and C team ranked 1st, 2nd, and 4th, with Brown's A team the only one separating the Blue Hen Trio, at least according to the seedings. A reminder, team events, there are no preliminaries. Only in the individual events, these team events, the first time that they have done the 400-yard at least medley relay. Should be noted the men's 200-yard freestyle relay was all the way back in the beginning of this evening, and one in which it was taken by Delaware in upset fashion away from Brown. Delaware, though, are the favorites here in the 400-yarder. But first, the C seeds here with Seton Hall in lane number 1 going up on the horn. It is Seton Hall in lane number 1, UMBC in lane number 2. Bucknell is in lane 3, 16 seconds quicker than anyone else according to the seed times. Is Delaware in lane number 4. The closest to them is Fordham in lane number 5, with Davidson in lane 6 and Brown occupying lane number 7. It's a great start by Seton Hall, though, all the way down. I feel like you put an asterisk by the seed times because they have been going way ahead of them. And in fact, they are coming in a very impressive start so far all the way down in lane 1. They are one worth looking after. They're the only school that's hung around Delaware here in the opening salvo of this one. And of all schools all the way up, go up to Brown, who is in lane number 7. It is Delaware, though, in first, from Seton Hall, from Brown, from Fordham, from Bucknell, from Davidson, from UMBC. All 7 schools putting out C, B, and A teams for this final competition on this lovely Friday night in Lewisburg. And now they've gotten a real push, haven't they, Brown, all the way up top. And in fact, they find themselves almost neck and neck. They're catching up to the Blue Hens. That was a 0.7 of a second quicker. Brown's last 50 over Delaware's last 50. At this pace, they'll be in the lead going to the halfway mark. You mentioned to the near side it was one to look out for. That's continued as Seton Hall has stayed front and not away from the leaders. That was a great last 25 yards there from Delaware, as they will have the advantage of 29-1. That was a whole second quicker then Brown, nearly a second quicker. In fact, 0.8 of a second quicker than Brown up top. They have the first place position with Seton Hall in third. Seton Hall occupied all the way on the near side. You can barely see it on your screens. The swimmer in lane number 1, almost bouncing off of the spectators on the near side. That's Seton Hall in third position. Brown escaping the pool in lane number 7. All the way up top, maintaining a good push for second position. It has been Delaware wire to wire, however. And Delaware on this third leg, that seems to be their money leg. They have performed very well so far throughout this competition, both in 200 and 400 yards this evening. And into the freestyle swim, they will have a body length advantage from the rest of the competition. That's Brown up top, that is closest, and then Seton Hall all the way at the bottom. And then from there, you've got UMBC and Davidson trying to fight for some top 5 positioning. Bucknell still trailing behind with that pink swing cap, trying to get away from the anchor as they come to the final push, and the crowd roaring in approval of this. Delaware in the middle of the park, in the lead emphatically now. Brown touching the wall next, about a body's length and change behind. Delaware led from the first 50 yards, and they're looking to take it all the way to the end with a 3:18.4. Brown taking second with Seton Hall in third. Fordham narrowly getting 5th away from Davidson. UMBC and Bucknell to round it out. So far, as advertised, admittedly, to what we have seen, Delaware were the favorites. They did get the victory. A span of about 2 seconds, just over 2 seconds from the Bears, who are all the way up in lane 7. 2 more heats remaining this evening. And a reminder, we are back at it tomorrow morning for the preliminaries, and then we'll be back on commentary tomorrow evening for the finale. Once again, the events taking place tomorrow evening. We'll see the 200 medley relay, the 400 individual medley, as well as the 100 fly, the 200 free, the 100 breast, the 100 back, and the 800 free. The diving event will be the 1 meter dive taking place in the evening as well. The specialized swims will be taking place on Saturday, with Sunday leading to more team competition in the final diving event, the men's 3 meter dive. We will also have, in the middle of the day, our longest endurance competition around 2 p.m., the women's and men's 1650 freestyle. That's all taking place on Sunday, though. Before we can even look forward to what's taking place in the coming days this weekend, a look then at our final 2 heats. Heat number 2, the B seeds, in the men's 400-yard medley relay. From lanes 1 through lane 7, Bucknell with Fordham in lane 2, Seton Hall in lane 3, Delaware, the favorites in this heat, in lane number 4. Brown will put up a seated time less than 3 seconds away from Delaware's in lane 5. UMBC is in lane 6. Davidson rounding it out in lane number 7. The first 25, about even Steven as you get, with Seton Hall, it seemed, in the early advantage. In fact, they'll give it to Fordham with a 23.9. First and last, separated by just 0.7 of a second through the first 50-yard swam of 400. And that same pace has very much carried itself then into the second leg, and it is a difference of less than 0.2 of a second between first place Delaware and second place Brown, who is actually tied with Davidson all the way up in lane number 7, who had a very impressive final push there. The pool record you can see on the near side, we've seen a couple of pool records get broken already today. The 3:10.35 is just 0.6 away from Delaware's A-team's seeded time. And now when we get into the second leg, this is where Delaware begins to separate themselves. Down in the middle of the pool, In second position, behind narrowly, is Seton Hall, who has done themselves quite impressively so far. I'll tell you what, that battle for second place looks absolutely gruesome. On the far three lanes, that's Davidson, UMBC, and Brown. They almost looked neck and neck. And how about that? First place and fourth place separated by 2 seconds, with second place and fifth place separated by just less than a second. You get into the real even keelness of this competition. It'll take pure grit and effort to determine who gets away more. Brown separating themselves. They're trying to get away from that far side lane. Delaware, though, meanwhile, continuing to extend themselves with Brown in second, and it looks like a tie between UMBC up top and down low in Delaware, and not Delaware, but Seton Hall for third place position. And on to the next leg they go. They really separate themselves into the freestyle. It is Delaware up by almost a margin of 2 bodies lengths. Brown doing well to get away from the pack as well. They are in second position. Brown were expected to give Delaware a bit of a match here. They're looking to solidify second with UMBC to their right, and then 3 lanes away, Seton Hall to their left. 2 lanes rather, in fact, as 1 lane to the right, we see Delaware going into the final stages. The Delaware men took heat number 1 in what was a stellar competition for them, and they are going to take heat number 2 by as confident a margin as heat number 1. Delaware in first with a 3:16.3. Brown getting second away from UMBC. Seton Hall taking fourth. Davidson, Bucknell, Fordham rounding it out. Well, you mentioned the way the Delaware so far have been the favorites going in. They took care of business in heat number 1. They took care of business in heat number 2, and now they're looking to complete the hat trick of heats in the men's 400-yard medley relay, going into heat number 3 this time with the sides' A teams. Chance on the near side from the Brown swimmers. Brown are the 2nd seed in this one, and then a large gap with UMBC. We haven't seen them lead one so far in the 7th seed, at least in the team events. Seton Hall, not the 7th seed rather, but the 3rd seed. They're the 7th seed in total when you include the B and C teams. To the final heat we go on this Friday evening affair in lanes number 1 through 7. Lane 1 will see Davidson. Lane 2 will be hosted by Fordham. Lane 3 will see the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, or UMBC. 4 will have the Blue Hens of Delaware trying to get the hat trick of heats in this men's 400-yard medley relay. Trying to spoil the party most likely will be Brown, who is in lane number 5. Seton Hall is in lane 6, and rounding it out, representing the number 6 seed, is Bucknell. At their home pool, the Kinney Auditorium, trying to provide an upset all the way up in lane number 7. Maybe the commentator's curse needed on UMBC, as through the first leg, they are in front of 47.8 on the first leg backstroke. But now as we get into leg number 2, this has been Delaware's leg, these middle 2 all evening, and how about that push? Just as we mentioned it, they take their first lead, the Blue Hens, inching themselves in front. It's almost looking like a podium by the way the swimmers are organized. You've got Delaware, and then it's Brown to the left, UMBC to the right, and then all the way up top to the left, you see Seton Hall attempting to stay in it on the left side, and on the right side, Fordham trying to break the pyramid that has been formed amongst the swimmers, a pyramid that has been raised by Delaware. They have increased this advantage by over a swimmer's length, a length and a half and counting. into leg number 3. Delaware trying to make it a drama-free affair like they've done in the first and second heats. Brown second, UMBC 3, Seton Hall in 4th, Fordham in 5th, Bucknell in 6th, Davidson rounding it out in 7th position. And they continue to push forward. The Blue Hens charging and cocking their way forward. Brown keeping it at least a length comfortable enough for a push. But they are going to need a bit more support than what they're getting here. In fact, they're receiving a lot of pressure to their left. That is Seton Hall that was predicted to finish 8 seconds slower than them on the seeds. But Seton Hall might have just overcome Brown. This battle for second place continues to get sweeter. To the next leg, it has though been all Delaware, almost a slip up on the jump from Brown. Seton Hall trying to overtake for second. But as of now, this final event on this Friday evening is turning into a battle for second position. The Blue Hens, they have a level of cohesiveness and pragmatism that has bested the 6 other schools all evening long on the men's side of things, in the team events at least, and they are going to get what would be their sweetest and most blowout fashionist of wins this evening. The Delaware faithful on their feet behind us as the Blue Hens will take the hat trick of the heats with a 3:09.19. Brown held off for a second. A big battle for 4th place. UMBC trying to hold off Fordham, and they do so, as 3rd place will be Seton Hall. 5th place is Fordham. 6th place Davidson, and the hometown Bison rounding it out. Delaware's his hat trick in the men's 400-yard medley relay. For final scores and point totals and results of Friday night, tune in to Bucknell's athletic page online for the final results, and tune back in Saturday morning as we have the preliminaries for the next day of events. That's going to wrap it up, though, for Friday night of the Bucknell Invitational. Live from the Kinney Auditorium for executive producer Adam Contini, director Maria Rizzuta, and camera operator Elizabeth DeRoba, I'm Nicholas Severini, saying so long from Lewisburg.